What if you could turn your passion for helping others into a career that changes lives, starting with your own? Join Empower's certified professional Empower Coach Academy, accredited by the ICF and powered by Oregon State University. Our next cohort begins February 28th. Visit yesempower.com to reserve your spot today.
Welcome to Rewired. I'm your host, Tiffany Grimes with Empower Coaching and Training. I'm so excited to be here with you all, Rewired listeners, and today we have a treat. We will start with a listener question about detangling codependency. And we have a guest coach that you've had the opportunity to hear before. Certified ICF, PCC, and Empower coach Theo Morrison will answer today's listener question about detangling codependency. So be sure to listen in for that. And right after that will be our interview with Kelly. Kelly is a Latina money mindset coach who I've had the opportunity to work with at Empower. She has facilitated several group coaching processes for us, and I've been intrigued by her work and delighted by who she is and what she's doing for the world. Such a fun opportunity to talk to her. Her focus is really helping people heal their relationship with money. And of course, she gets into the technical talk and all of the actual percentages and ways that people can invest and grow their money. But a lot of what she does, and we talk about this in the interview, is really helping people create a healthier relationship with money, building awareness around our own money stories and money mantras and things that might be keeping us stuck in a loop so that we can really release that, free ourselves from that loop, and learn how to spend and save and invest and pay down debts with confidence and clarity. After growing her own investment portfolio from 0 to 10,000 in just 1 year, it really ignited her passion for helping the community do the same. She shares in our interview about a particular moment and an insight she had that really helped this kind of light this fire for her around investing. 5 years later, her investment portfolio is over 100K. We've started a new segment, folks, and I posted this on our LinkedIn page. So if you don't follow us there, go find us. It's Tiffany Grimes on LinkedIn. And you can also just email as well. But we are asking our listeners for their questions. And then either myself or guest coaches will come in and address the questions. So please let us know your questions. You can email at tiffany@yesempower.com. And again, you can also find us at LinkedIn at Tiffany Grimes. So this listener has our very first question, and it comes from Medford, Oregon. They write, "I appreciate you and Empower so much. Thanks for all the wonderful fodder you give my brain and heart. I've learned within the last year that I have been deeply involved in codependent behavior. I think I learned from my mom that doing everything for people means you love them. I've been reading all the books, Melody Beatty and more. Do you have much experience with it? And can you help identify the signs when the behavior starts to crop up? When is it codependency? And when is it doing something for someone you love out of kindness?" Thank you so much for this question, our first question. I've asked Theo Morrison, an ICF PCC coach and amazing colleague from Empower, to be our guest coach to respond to this question. Theo, what have you?
Well, Tiffany, I will say that I have a decent amount of experience with this personally. Definitely a lot of codependency in my relationships over the years that I've had to untangle slowly but surely, and also a decent amount of clients that have come to me with some codependency stuff that we've worked through. So I appreciate the question. I wanted to start by just saying that there's a lot that's working here. It's clear from the listener's question that they've already got a lot of awareness and they have a lot of care that they are displaying, with the question. So that's really helpful. It's really helpful to acknowledge, okay, there's some things that are really working here and we can build off this. And that's a really good starting point, moving towards solutions rather than being kind of stuck in the problem. So that's great. And then for anybody out there listening who maybe is a little confused about what codependency is and how we can define it, I think the simplest way for me is just to say my sense of well-being is dependent on the well-being of someone else. So if they're okay, then I'm okay. If they're not okay, then I'm not okay. And what that means is that I have to work pretty hard to make sure that they're okay so that I can be okay. And that's not actually very sustainable. So I end up feeling responsible for their feelings. I tend to lack self-care, like my own needs tend to go out the window. And this often will lead to me being resentful of them. I'm more exhausted. I'm more anxious. And also that kind of leads to me feeling my self-worth being tied up with my ability to make sure that they're okay. So, and I guess the other thing I would say is, this is normal. Codependency is really common. We are naturally inclined to be dependent on one another. We evolved to be this way. It's just that it's gotten out of balance. So it's our natural tendency that's kind of gotten a little bit out of balance. It's kind of run amok and it's caused a real sense of kind of dis-ease and problems within the relationship dynamics that we have. So I want to normalize that. I just want to say that this is super common, and knowing that we're not alone in this behavior and the consequences that it leads to can be a really helpful first step in moving towards solutions. So, and the other thing I would say is, as best we can, try not to pathologize. So try not to have that label of codependency be super sticky, because that can kind of lead to a narrative of like, oh, well, I'm codependent and therefore, right? And that self-fulfilling prophecy can be a little challenging to overcome. So kind of hold it lightly and maybe even just play with language like, well, my relationship's a little out of balance and I'm going to try and do some things to address that. As far as helping identify the signs when behavior starts to crop up, I would encourage people to get in touch with the physical sensations in their body, just to use mindfulness in order to get in touch with like, okay, how do I feel right now in my body? Because our nervous system is a really important clue in identifying when we're disturbed, when there's some kind of tension within the dynamic in a relationship. And you can just do the simple exercise of feeling what it's like in your body when you're alone in a space, and then comparing that to feeling what it's like in your body when you are with the person where you feel like this dynamic has gotten out of balance, right? And just get used to sensing into that. That's a really helpful clue to identify when that behavior is starting to crop up. And then how do we know the difference between when what we're doing is codependent versus just being kind? Again, just sense into your body. Like, what is the difference between doing something out of a sense of care and openness, where our body feels kind of light and free, versus feeling that tension of like, oh, if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. And that kind of fear and constriction starts to come in. Often you can feel that in your torso or in your jaw or your face. So just start to get more aware of those things. It can be really, really helpful in making that transition to a healthier dynamic. And then you can start to ask yourself some questions like, am I doing this from choice or from fear? If I don't do this and this person isn't able to care for themselves or complete this task or whatever it is that you're going to help them with, are those consequences going to have a huge impact on me? Is this actually my responsibility? And then also, am I denying this person an opportunity for growth? So all of those questions can kind of help us illuminate whether or not that behavior is actually codependent or if it's just kindness. And I would also just encourage folks to toy with the idea of rather than saying yes, say, let me think about it and get back to you. Or I'm not sure, but I'll let you know in a little while, right? And just getting away from that default mode can be really a great sign of progress in a positive direction. So I hope that's helpful. And I really appreciate the question.
Theo, thank you so much for that response. I really appreciate it and love the constant reminder of how powerful mindfulness can be, whether we're working on detangling codependency or working on self-compassion or identifying boundaries or any of that work. I also see a future podcast on this topic. So deep, so rich. And thank you to our listener who wrote in. If you are feeling moved and want to ask your own question, find us on LinkedIn or email me directly at tiffany@yesempower.com. It's really exciting to hear about the work that she's doing, and so glad you are here to listen to Kelly Zúñiga. Okay, Kelly, welcome to the Rewired podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. I'm excited for this conversation.
You and me both. I shared with the listeners in your introduction, but I've just really, I love the work that you're doing around money mindset, both with people who might already be on that pathway and people who feel so far away from that pathway. I love that we've been able to work together at Empower and some of the work you're doing with us. But I'm excited to get to know your work better and to hear more about what you're up to. But we're going to start with just a question that I love to ask, which is just what's got you feeling empowered right now, Kelly?
I love that. And I recently came up with this because I needed it. And I mean, it's
the genesis of all good things.
Yes, definitely. And my thing right now is I make money on my own terms, because something that happens, and it happens with ambitious folks, is that you get carried away with all these ideas and you have a lot of plans and it starts to take a life of its own. And so it's like you reach this point of I could do this thing, but is this the thing that I really want? And so having to go back to the intention of what is the what am I trying to create and why and for whom is very important for me, so that I don't get caught up or carried away doing projects that aren't aligned with that intention. And so the simplest way that I've said that is I make money on my own terms. It's not about money, just more money for the sake of having more money, although of course I will never say no to that. Yeah. But it's about money in alignment with the purpose that I have and what I'm trying to create and the impact that I'm trying to make in other people's lives.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. And so I make money on my own terms. Is that the phrase you said? Yeah. I feel like I matured into that within the last couple of years. And I what I tell people is I kind of built Empower on we can do that. Kind of swerving in and out of every lane, if you will. Yeah, sure, we can do that. And I think within the last probably 5 or 6 years, I've been that idea of where you're at, getting better of like, I can let that go. It's not in my lane. I don't want to do it. It doesn't excite me, or I'm not the right one. I love that. I can make money on my own terms. Well, let's keep talking about money. And particularly, I want to talk about money stories. And I want to hear this from your perspective. When I was looking at your website, of course, and doing a lot of research, but also just knowing some of the workshops that you've been offering through Empower to some of our group coaching, I'm hearing that phrase, money stories. And it made me think of a particular money story I had around when I purchased my first luxury car. I was well into my 40s, and I really had to do this deep searching around this story that I thought my blue collar, hardworking family would judge me. If it wasn't used and barely running and something I had to fix on my own. So I'm imagining that is what Money Stories is, but I'm so anxious to hear because it was a turning point for me when I heard that. It was like, I heard myself say that. That's not true. So help us understand what Money Stories are, and curious kind of dipping that into your own story, your own life, and some of your own money stories, and how that shaped identity and behavior without even realizing it, I'm guessing, and what shifted when you kind of dove into those stories.
Yes, we're on the same page about money story and
Okay.
how it shows up for us. It's something that both draws on our identities, but also impacts our future identity in terms of how we view ourselves and our beliefs that we have about ourselves. And so I thought about this question a lot, and the money story I want to share is related to the turning point in my financial life and what helped me go down this path of helping others with their money, because it started with me having to do that for myself. And so money stories, let me first just define it. Money stories is very broad. It's basically who taught you about money, what did they teach you about money, and how is that showing up today, where you are in your life. And we could look at it now. We can also look at in the past. How did our money story shape our decisions in the past? And we look at this to decide how we want to rewrite our money story, because I do believe that we can rewrite our money story for it to serve us and for us to feel fulfilled and aligned and happy and all those things.
Right.
So, so very important work. And so, and the thing is that we all have a money story. We're not always aware that it's operating. And so it's also important as we think about our money story to be aware that it's there, first of all. Otherwise, we can't analyze it or change it. So
Yep.
the moment I want to share is when I finished grad school. And so I'm a daughter of immigrants, and education was the goal here in this country. And so I went to undergrad at a good school, and I say that in quotations, and then graduate studies after that. And I was in my dream job. But what was happening is this job in higher ed didn't pay well enough for me to move out and live on my own in Los Angeles. That's where I still live. And so I had to live with my parents and depend on them financially.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Ready to make a real difference? Become a certified professional coach with Empower Coaching and Training. Our next CPEC cohort, accredited by the International Coaching Federation and offered in partnership with Oregon State University, starts February 28th. Spots are limited. Learn more at yesempower.com.
And so something else that was happening is that as a daughter of immigrants, you get this education to be in a better position financially and socially than your parents. But here I was relying on the people that I was supposed to be helping. And so that just caused a lot of conflict and tension within me, and a lot of self-loathing and shame and guilt. And so I internalized this as a personal failure. Like, my parents gave me this chance, they sacrificed so much, and now I'm here in this position. And I made this financial thing mean everything about me.
Yeah.
It became
Yes.
like my personality, if you will, rather than saying like, what is the impact I'm making? What other things are going well in my life? I have great relationships, and I wasn't looking at that. I was just looking at, I can't afford to move out. I'm not saving money. That was the money story that I was telling myself and making it mean something about me, like I'm flawed. And so I didn't realize this was happening. But now that I look back, what was happening as a result is that I was staying stuck, because there are other beliefs that are at play. So our money story, it's like this big package. And then inside of it, we also have little beliefs, things that we believe to be true. And so what was also happening is I was thinking to myself, I should just be grateful that I have a job. When I graduated from college, we were in a financial recession. And so I thought I should just be grateful that I have a job. And then the second thing was, well, I have a job that I love. And if I could change to another industry, private industry, but then I won't be doing something that I love. And so I'd rather not make money. And so there's this belief
these
of
things
like,
have to operate independently. I can't be happy and wealthy. I can't, that's not going to happen.
yeah. So these beliefs, they were informing my money story. They were fueling my money story, if you will.
Yeah.
And so what was happening is that I was staying stuck. And so what changed, the pivotal moment was me going to a financial planning day, because I just knew things aren't working. I'm unhappy. And I met with this pro bono financial advisor, and he looked at my stuff. And the simple thing was, he just was kind to me, something I hadn't done for myself. And he was like, you're doing great. Like, you're not making a lot of money, but you're saving money. And a lot of people don't do that. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's like part of the mindset piece, just the compassion that he showed me. And then the other piece was the information piece, where he's like, look, you're saving money. Why don't you invest that money? Why don't you grow that money? And I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
So that took me down this whole path of just learning about investing. And that's when I realized there are ways to make money that are not related just to work. And also, just because also that helped me see that we can still be good people and be happy and make money.
Yes.
Here you had this financial advisor who was like empowering people to take control of their lives, and he was getting paid well to do it. So that's when I started to change my money story.
Wow. And so did that influence this work that you're doing now as a money mindset coach?
Absolutely. And it took a while. I mean, the first step was me just learning, all these things for myself. Because once I started learning to invest, I realized, well, I need money to invest. And
Yeah.
and the math isn't mathing. So I thought, okay, I need to increase my salary. And I can't do this alone. And so I had to release some of this money because the scarcity money mindset was also operating. And so I was afraid to invest in career coaching and all these things that were going to help me. But I was learning to release and trust. And that is when I switched jobs and then got promoted within that job, and so that definitely led me to that path of, I can make more money, still do something that I love and make more money. Now I can invest it. And it's just a wheel. I talk about a financial balance wheel with my clients, and it's different areas. And so once you touch one area, you will start to look at another area. And that's what happened. I started looking at my debt. I started looking at everything. And once I felt that I knew what I was doing, I started sharing it with people in very casual ways. And then folks were like, you need to teach this. You need to share this with people. And that's a whole other journey I can talk about, to just starting to charge people for it.
Right. I can only imagine. Yeah, the good work that went into that.
Yes. But fast forward to where we are now. Yeah. Once I worked through all of that, that's when I started actually turning it into a business.
Yeah. What you're talking about and what we talk about a lot on here, it's identity-based work, right? And so it's this idea of like, I can be like, you could have had that conversation with that financial advisor and not hear that because of your own internal dialogue, or not have gotten the same out of it, or not had been motivated to go build skills differently because your mindset's still the same. Like, I'm living with my parents. I have failed. I have not done what this hard work is that they did. And I'm, these stories, that there can be all the skills and resources available in the world. But if we're telling ourselves these stories about who we are, whether it's in relationship to money or to love or to physicality or, whatever it is, it's like we don't go do the skill building because it's the same brain. That's, I'm not going to go do those. I'm not going to learn those new skills because that's not who I am. Why would I? Because I'm over here in this category. Yeah. So it really highlights that kind of mindset part of your work, that we have to learn who we are in relationship to money and go digging into the stories.
Yeah, absolutely. That, and also the power of surrounding yourself by the right people who are going to support you in that journey is so important. Because people can shut us down, right? And so I think it's a two-part thing, is we have to show up and be ready to show up as that person, and also find the people who are going to support us. And so discernment in that process is so important.
It's so true that when I was telling you my own money story, I was looking at buying this car, and it wasn't influenced by me. It was that I was pregnant. We live on this super crazy, wild, mountainy road. And my partner was like, you got to be in something safer. I was in this old car. You got to be in something safer. We got to have our children in something safer, and he started focusing in on these luxury cars, and it was this whole and so having him where I would be like, I can't, like, what would my parents think about me? I am a 40-year-old woman, but I'm still like, what are they going to think about me? And having him there where he's like, they have $50,000 Harleys. They have an $85,000 RV, like what? It was just fascinating. I was just keeping this story from my childhood and even applying it to my parents who were no longer telling me that story, but it was that deep brain learning from development around we struggle with money. And so you don't spend it frivolously. And we aren't those people who drive those cars, Anyway, yeah, it's good work. It's such good work. And the moment of seeing that and really like honoring that, it was profound for me. And I got a nice car.
Yes,
I could afford, by the way. So let's talk about this from a brain standpoint, from a neuroscience perspective. What's actually happening in the brain when people feel, we both talked about this relationship, this stress, this avoidance, this shame-based relationship with money. What's actually happening in the brain? And how does that understanding then help us make better financial decisions?
Yeah, great question. To simplify it, it's basically our brain is receiving these situations that are stressful, and money is a stressful thing. It can be a stressful thing, right? A lot of things are outside of our control, or we depend on folks to get our money things done, right? We also have a history that we have to contend with. And some of that is like our own decisions, some of that are decisions that others have made that impact us. And so these are stressors, and our body is receiving them, our brain is receiving them as threats, as these threats that are actually bigger than what they are. And so what's happening is we're just, our nervous system is also being activated. I recently did a workshop with a therapist because I'm not a nervous system expert, and she explained it way better. I'm going to try to do it justice here, but we go into either hyperarousal mode, and so fight or flight, or we go into hypoarousal mode, which is freeze or fawning. And so what those responses could look like on the hyperarousal end of the spectrum is that we may act impulsively. We may be, and the big example that people use because it's a good one and obvious one is like overspending, like just clicking buy because we're trying to self-soothe.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of things is the feeling stuck or not taking action or avoiding. And so, I work with folks who are like, I don't want to do my taxes. Now it's piled up. And these things get worse the more that we avoid them. And it's because we are receiving them as threats that are actually bigger than what they are. And so the way that I like to work with these things are actually walking away from the story. We go back to the story. So in our head, we're creating a story about what's happening. This is going to mean X, Y, and Z. And the thing is, these things are happening subconscious level. And so it's helpful to write down, like, what am I really scared of? What am I actually scared of? Because we're realizing that when we actually write it down, we realize like that actually sounds a little silly, I made a mistake. I forgot to cancel a hotel reservation. And so I was on the hook for hundreds of dollars. And I was like, this is awful. I'm, going to be in such a bad financial position. Like, this is going to mess up my entire budget. And when I wrote that down, I started just questioning those thoughts. Like, okay, yes, it's money that now I've lost. Fine. But these few $100s aren't going to make me homeless. Fortunately, I'm going to have a home. I'm going to be able to pay my rent. Okay, maybe it'll mean that I can't buy these things that I wanted, these upgrades. That's fine. I'll just have to wait 2 months to do it. Right. And so it's breaking down the threat. Look, one, realizing like, what are we really scared of here? And two, okay, it's not actually as big as a threat as I thought that it was. And making a little plan for, okay, how am I going to overcome this challenge? That's what's really helpful. But to answer your original question, it's just our bodies and our brains receiving it as a threat. That's this huge threat when it's actually not that big of a deal in our day-to-day.
Yeah. So good. We had a coach on, it's been a couple months ago, but Cassie Lopez, and she focuses on ADHD. And so she was, of course, talking about the brain, because I always ask everybody to talk about the brain. But she named it, and as you talked about it, it made me think about it. So those, like, the threat systems in the brain and really writing it down, she named those. So that threat system is the amygdala, right? But if you spell out amygdala, she called it Amy G. Dalla, and she said it, Amy G. Dalla. And then the writing it down and self-talk about this $200, it is a bummer. And also, I'm not in a place where it's going to put me out on the streets, and I can make this up. And she called that Dr. PFC, so Dr. Prefrontal Cortex. And so really thinking about, like, bringing humor into it, right? So being like, Amy, calm down, Amy G. Dalla is making decisions right now. And I want to, like, let's bring the doctor in and see what she has to say, and kind of looking at it from these two different perspectives and how important that work is.
I love that, because it's dollar like dollar bill.
Right. Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, you could take it on a whole other spin. I love that. That's right.
I will listen to that episode.
Yeah, really good. All right. So yeah, that's really helpful, thinking about these threat systems and how change is vulnerable, especially when it's around money, because I think that is such a stuck point for so many people. And so let's talk about that stuckness and how people get stuck in these financial patterns of overspending, under earning, scarcity thinking. And again, I know that there are, many layers of what keeps people stuck in money, whether we're talking about race or culture or access to resources or education. So I want to layer this within things we have control of. What are the most common money loops you see, and how do people interrupt those loops?
This is a great question. And I would say the loop itself, or how do I want to say this? I guess what keeps us in the loop, I know you're asking about the loop, but what keeps us in loops is not airing out these things, is not talking about them, is keeping ourselves in this cycle of either secrecy or a cycle of, like, I just don't want to deal with it. And so I like to think about this topic as a bag of laundry that we've washed but keep in a plastic bag. And so if you've ever accidentally left your laundry in the washing machine for too long, it starts to smell.
Or you have tweens and they do it every weekend. Yeah, I know that smell.
Okay, so you know it well. And so, when we don't acknowledge that these things are happening in our financial lives, these money loops, and we just leave them in the bag and we don't open the bag, we don't get curious about what's in the bag or what's happening, then it's going to just stink up. And so what we need to do is open the bag and take the laundry out, because we're going to realize this actually smells really bad and I need to deal with it. Now you can't run away from it. It's there, it's in your face. So you'll probably throw it back into the washing machine and wash it, or you'll set it out to dry and then go online and figure out how to get the smell out, right? But my point is that what keeps people in loops is not talking about it at home. And so I am applying what I know, and it's not working for me. And so if I continue to do that, just implementing things that I'm hearing or I've learned from others, and I'm not getting results, that's a loop. And so in order to break out of the loop is realizing, just being open, like we are with other things in our lives, this is not the only way to do it. There's got to be another way. And so just getting curious is a way to break the loop. Because now what am I going to do? I'm going to ask somebody who's not a homeowner, but seems to be doing well. How are you building wealth? How are you able to afford the things that you want? Which can also lead us to the second stage of realizing that not everything we see is true. People sometimes have a certain outward expression of wealth, but then if we actually look under the hood, we see that people struggle with credit card debt or other things, right? And so that's another loop that people get into, is assuming that everybody else is doing well and they're not. And why? Because we don't talk about it. So that's how I started with this whole airing out the laundry, because if we don't have spaces and we don't have a culture where people feel comfortable talking about their money life, it's taboo, right? What if they say, don't talk about money, don't talk about politics at the dinner table?
Yeah.
So we're in this culture of let's not talk about it. And so we get into these loops where we make it mean something about us. So I don't know what I'm doing and others do, and I don't want to ask because I don't want to look incompetent. I don't want to, make a fool of myself. I don't want to be embarrassed. And so those are the loops that keep people stuck. So not being able to, maybe learning how to make more money in their job, or not sure how to deal with the overspending, or being afraid to release money. Like all these things that we see, these patterns and these loops are oftentimes just the result of not knowing, of not feeling comfortable to reach out, and not knowing where to get information, and just repeating what we already know without getting curious about, well, what could we do?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Ready to level up how you lead at work and at home? Empower Coaching and Training brings brain-based coaching, mindfulness tools, and real-world strategies you can share with those you serve and live with. Get started now. Visit us at yesempower.com.
Differently.
Yeah. And the courage it takes, as you were talking about that, it made me think about, I didn't grow up with a family that had retirement accounts, or, it was everything all in to make it every paycheck. And when I got into college, I started dating this person who did have wealth, and it was generated by one particular family member who invested early and then really flipped the script for the whole family, started educating people, and would give the grandkids, money when they were young, and it would be to invest and to do these things. And so their whole family, it was generational shifting around money. And I was young at that point. I was right out of college. And so I learned about a 401k, and I was like, I'm going to put in and I'm going to just do this. Well, I did it, and I was an AmeriCorps member at the time. So I was literally putting in like $25 a month, because that was my percentage that I could put in out of my paycheck. But I was looping in, I should know this. So I would I would look at my accounts and be like, this isn't making any money. I don't understand. So I'd make an appointment with the person at the business that was investing my money at my 401k. And I would nod. They'd give me all the answer and all the info. I had no idea what they were saying. And I remember I would leave there and cry to myself in my car, because I felt so dumb. I felt like I don't even know what questions to ask. I should know this stuff. As a woman, I want to act like I know what I'm talking about in there, so I wouldn't ask the questions. And I went 20 years, Kelly, without that money making much at all, until somebody else got involved and really started educating me and training me and helping me. But those loops can be on so many levels of just like, oh, no, I have an account. Of course I have a retirement account. Is it doing anything? Oh, no, actually it's not. Do I know what my person is saying? Not a freaking word. I don't know what he says in there. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're sharing this. And I wanted to think of something to leave folks with, which I know you wanted me to talk about later, but I just feel like I have to say it now.
Yeah, do it.
This mantra that I teach people, or maybe mantra is not the right word, but I tell people not knowing is not a problem. Because I think that's what was happening with you, and it happens with a lot of us, where we don't know something or we don't understand something and we make it a problem. Like, oh, I don't know what this means, or I don't know how to do this, so I just should not bother, or I'm a bad person, or I'm not intelligent or enough, or there's nowhere I can go because I don't know how to move forward. And so I always say, let's not make it a problem. You don't know. That's okay. We're not born knowing everything. And so when I think of younger Tiffany in those meetings, I think what was happening is you were making that mean something about you, right? Like, I don't know what's happening, so I'm feeling as, X, Y, and Z. When it's like, well, no, you don't know this because it's not your world. It's not your profession. And even though you did grow up learning about investing, I imagine no one actually sat with you and looked at accounts with you and assets with you and explained to you how those grow,
Right.
right? So the
Yeah.
problem wasn't that you didn't know. The problem was maybe just you didn't have what you needed in that moment to understand the information that was being presented to you. And so when we externalize that and not internalize it, then we can actually look at it objectively and be like, okay, how do I solve this? It's not an issue, but we do have to find a solution. So
Yes.
let's find a
And
solution.
in the beginning, and so, I started reading a lot of money books at that point and podcasts, and the first thing they say, they just normalize the not knowing, exactly what you're doing. Everybody is pretending that they know.
Yes.
The same thing about running a business. Nobody really knows what we're doing. We're all just trying to, we're learning, hopefully, and we're asking questions and we're talking to each other and we're going to networking groups where we can learn from each other. And like you're saying, we have this closed off belief around money culturally. And so we're not, I mean, I think it's changing a little bit maybe, and with, amazing people like you, but yeah, like learning from each other for sure. And using the tools, younger Tiffany didn't have Chat GPT where I could be like, could you translate, or like, give me 3 questions I should be asking my, financial advisor. Yeah. Using those tools. So good. So if someone, you talked a little bit about our nervous system and, regulating that. You said you did this workshop, so you did some really great kind of prepping us for this, but I'm curious how much of the work that you're doing is helping people regulate their system when it comes to money, and how much of it is hard skill, this much money goes into here and this percentage, like what, I'm just curious about that, I guess. How much of your work is about mindset and regulation and building these mantras and normalizing the looping and the fear and the stories?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because most people come to me for the money stuff. They're like, I want to learn how to save or how to invest. But when we actually sit down and talk about what's happening, what the problem is in their words, and we dissect it, then I'm like, it's more about how you're viewing the situation, or more about what's happened to you in the past, and not having or having had the space to unpack it and see that this affected you in very profound ways, and that you are maybe being a little hard on yourself. I think most people are hard on themselves. Being hard on yourself and now carrying these feelings of shame or guilt, and it's preventing you from sitting down and actually doing the thing. So I talk a lot about, I help people get the money thing done, because the information's out there. Like you said, it's so much more accessible now than ever before. And so I think for most folks, it's about actually understanding why they're not able to get the thing done. And so that's the mindset portion. What's happening? How am I viewing myself? What are the thoughts and beliefs I have about this issue that are making me either avoid it or divert my energy towards other things that aren't actually helping me solve this financial issue or challenge? And so I would say that most folks that I work with are there, and they're realizing how things like fear or insecurity has prevented them from taking action, from opening the book or listening to the podcast, or implementing something that they've learned. And not everyone. I have worked with folks who come in, and I try to do my usual money story exploration, and they're like, I'm ready to get to work. And I'm like,
I got it.
And I give them the task and they get it done. And we keep every week, we're very task oriented, because they understood. They know where they're at. They've done the work either directly or adjacent to money, and they understand what their fears or limits might be, and so they're ready to address them. But most folks are not aware. Why? Because, going back to an earlier point, we just don't have enough spaces where we can talk about money safely without judgment, and really, again, air out the bag of laundry of like, what's really happening. What is going on that's making me feel unpleasant or unhappy or unfulfilled in my money life.
Yeah. And what that makes me think about is that one of the stories might be that we don't think about investing money or talk about money until we have money. And so it makes me, as you talk about that, it makes me think about there's a lot of work that even if at the end of the month, I've got zero in my bank account, and it's not because I'm off overspending, it's because I'm barely making it every month, that there's still work that can be done. Can you talk a little bit about that? What are some things where, folks who don't feel like they have the money to spend or the investments to make, what can they be doing right now?
Yeah, that's a great one because it's true. I said earlier, the math has to math. And sometimes for folks, there just isn't enough of a surplus in order to grow their money.
Yeah.
And so I think what's really important is to look at how we view income to begin with, because, and this certainly was the case with me, is that part of the reason also why I stayed in my job for so long, even though I wasn't making as much as I needed to invest and save and move out and do all the things, was because I didn't view myself as somebody who could make that amount of money. And so I know that there was definitely some self-worth issues I needed to work on and I had to work through that were preventing me from asking for the raise, that were preventing me from putting myself out there. And those are things that the career coach that I work with helped me see, because she looked at my resume and she's like, objectively speaking, you do meet all of these criteria. But when she would ask me about it in my own view, like, let's look at the job description and let's look at my resume, I was like, well, I don't know how to do this, or I'm not sure that I can get this done. And she would directly point to my bullet points and be like,
yeah, you do.
yeah, it's not adding up. And so I realized, like, oh, wow, it's my own stuff. It's my own stuff that's preventing me, my own fear of like being put on the spot in this interview and looking dumb, that's keeping me from even applying for the job. Right. And so for me, it's personal to everybody. But for me, there was definitely some self-worth that I needed to work on, some issues there. And then also, I said this earlier, but these ideas that we have about ourselves that are related to culture, and so again, I just need to be grateful. That was the thing that I thought for the longest time. Grateful to have a job, and explicitly grateful to have a job in this country because my parents worked so hard for me to come here. And so I viewed it as like, I need to be grateful. I'm not going to be like other people who take these things for granted. But that was turning into a limiting belief because I wasn't trying to get out of that job, right? And so before I got to that point, though, I was just in this pattern. I was in this pattern of like, I show up to work and that's it. And I'm not even going to pay attention to what these other folks are saying because I don't have the money to do it. And so viewing money as the issue, when yes, it is, when we look at the balance sheet, if you want to call it that, it is, there's not enough money coming in. But the real issue is me not believing enough in myself, in what I know, to pursue a job that's going to help me get more money.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things came to mind as you were speaking. One is that sometimes the work, like if we're doing that mindset work that you were just describing, the first steps might be turning backwards. And what do I need to clean up here? What are right? So what's the debt I need to pay off? What's the credit I need to build? What's that kind of work and that mindset? I think about all of the shame that can come with debt and debt collectors and that pain and shame, and that mindset work being so important because it might give us the courage, not even yet to go this direction, to like put the money aside to save, but to turn around and go, okay, how do I get this behind me looking clean enough and ready so that I can really build on that? I can think about, how important that would be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that because, I share a lot about my personal story, but when I work with folks who have a lot of debt, it's absolutely that. It's feeling like it's this big mountain of ugliness and it's always going to be there because it's familiar. And so, yes, I would love to guide them down this path of investing and teach them that. But first, let's handle this with a lot of gentleness and love and care. And let's start chipping away at it. It's a mountain. We're not going to climb it in one day. Let's just chip away at it. And then when you start chipping away at it, that's when, going to what you said, that's when you notice like, oh, I feel a lot of shame around it. Okay, let's work on that shame.
Yeah.
And then even deeper than that, well, why did we get into this debt in the first place? Yes, there are financial reasons, but for a lot of folks, there are also emotional reasons. There are other stressors in their lives that are leading to the debt, burnout or conflict or things like that that are causing people, again, to just self-soothe or have fun or live in this sort of like, I deserve it mentality. I mean, there's so many reasons why people get into debt, but yeah, we have to deal with that first. Absolutely. As much as I would love to jump right into the investing, it's like, there will be a time and place for that. Like you said, let's clean up first. I love that. Let's clean it up first.
Yeah. The second thing it made me think about is, again, some of that work that can be done right now is just that languaging. You know, you kind of talked about this in the beginning, this like what's empowering you is language that you're giving yourself. And that sometimes our looping or our relationships, and I'm imagining you probably do a lot of this as a mindset coach around money, but we have these beliefs that come out in scripts that we practice over and over again, right? Like, oh, that'd be nice, but I can't afford that. Or, you know, someday or something, but really like taking those and thinking about, I do this a lot with people's relationship to time, right? I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. So what if we changed it to, I'm not prioritizing this right now. Instead, I'm prioritizing this. So rather than I can't afford this, like what I'm prioritizing this month is staying in the budget of what I have so that I can make steps forward in paying off the debt. But just how important it is to learn to talk to ourselves like that financial advisor and your career coach did to you. And to change those scripts. I mean, that all leads to future investment. That all leads to money because it's the same things that keep us away from money and repel money and opportunities, is that reminder of like, that's different than me. That's separate than who I am. Yeah,
Absolutely. And just thinking it will come, it will happen. But if we don't take any steps at all, then nothing will change. That definitely fuels me. And that's a reminder for folks who feel overwhelmed. It's like, well, yes, but the script. Talk to yourself differently about the situation. You are taking steps towards there. You know, a baby learns to crawl before they walk.
Right.
They definitely learn to walk before they run. There are no shortcuts. You gotta do the work. And that's okay. That's just the nature of progress, and everyone's journey looks different.
Yeah. And you're talking about this, I just want to name it, but really it's self-compassion, right? And so can you just kind of highlight the role of self-compassion in this money mindset work?
Absolutely. It's been the key to everything for me, for others. Being self-compassion is a must. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. You have to learn how to live with yourself. You have to learn to love yourself despite anything that you may be doing that is not helping you.
Right.
You know, we hear self-sabotage a lot, right? Like we do self-sabotage sometimes. We do get in our own way, but we still have to love ourselves. And so we may not always like ourselves, but we have to love ourselves. And I think that's really at the heart of self-compassion. It's just loving ourselves, even if we don't like how we're acting or showing up, because we won't want to sit with that person. We're talking about facing a lot of our stuff, our ugliness, if you will. If we don't love that person, we're not going to want to sit with them.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to want to get into our bank account or, you know, open that credit card statement. I think it's so old school, like actually opening the envelope, but we're not. I don't even do that anymore. Oh my God. That's just stayed with me. But we're not going to want to log on and look at this statement if we don't love ourselves, because now we want to run away from these things. And so, being so self-compassionate of like, it's okay, I make mistakes. basically treating ourselves like we treat our best friend, right? Like if we really love our friends, they can make mistakes and we're like, we love you. You're the best. It's okay. Like you're
Yeah.
fine. You're still a beautiful human being. We don't do that enough for ourselves. And so we need to do that to ourselves,
Yeah.
for ourselves, so that we can sit with this version of us that's imperfect and guide them through the work. So yes, I would say it's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's so good. I was listening to a podcast, surprise, surprise, with Elizabeth Gilbert, who recently released a new book and about kind of freeing herself from her own addictions. But she was talking to herself in this way that just stuck with me. And she would put her hand to her chest and she'd go, "Oh, honey, of course you would think that, you know?" And she just talked to herself with such love and how that was part of her healing path. And, you know, I think about that and just this moment that you were describing around a money story and the moment that I'm describing around a money story. It's like, oh, honey, of course you would feel not worthy of a really nice car, or that these people who worked so hard to raise you would judge you for that, or like, of course that's the truth. And so let's work with that and meet ourselves there and just love ourselves and all the things that got us here, and that love can give us the permission to put it down. Like that story doesn't, it was important. It's not important anymore. You know, you can let that one go. And I just love that concept. Okay. And so I'm also curious, and I didn't ask you this in advance, so please feel free to, you know, you can just send me information if you'd like, but I'm curious if there are any resources that you would recommend for people. Is there a podcast they should listen to? Is there an author they should get a book for? You know, where should people begin here on this journey?
Yeah. So I think it's important to get money tips, mindset, or financial tips from folks who have a similar experience to you or look like you, because I think that was part of the issue, is that I was hearing financial tips and advice from white men, and I'm not a white man. And so,
Right.
you know, the way that they were explaining things was just not a way that I was able to receive it. And so I started looking online and through word of mouth. And the first investing course that I took was Latina, from a Latina. And the way she described things, I was like, oh, look at the metaphor she's using. Like, I get this.
Yes.
It's so like culturally relevant to me. And so I would say that's the most important thing. And so one of the podcasts that I listen to is one called Yo Quiero Dinero, which means I want money. And again, it's like the same financial advice, but through a lens that I was able to receive it from and understand it from. So I would say that's important. So, I mean, you know, I'm sure you have a diverse group of listeners, so I, you know, can't speak to everybody's identity, but I would say that that's very, very important. And also looking at events in the area. So I talked about the financial planning day that I went to. It was through the Los Angeles Public Library. And so libraries do have these events, and it's a great place. Even if it sounds so basic, it's a great place to go to because you're going to learn something you didn't know before. And then the library has books. So someone can point you to that section, or you can go online, look at the ebooks, and start to look for authors that, again, that you can relate to. So I would say that's important. I really focus on identity to begin with, because that's just that was also a big key for me.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
Journey.
Yeah. And it's, you know, we're hardwired to connect. So the more that I can see, like you said, somebody who looks like me, sounds like me, doing the work, I'm already beginning to build a sense of safety and a sense of trust. And there I'm getting those little micro wins already, and then can build and go into the big ocean of other resources once I've maybe built some community around me. Yeah. Love that.
Absolutely.
Well, anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with, and please do let us know, you know, if you're working with people, is there a demographic that you love to serve, or do you only serve, you know, certain people? And so, and how people can find you, Kelly.
Yeah. So I work with anybody who's ready to do the work. But that said, I mostly work with women of color. It's the the folks, the people who gravitate towards me and my message and my experience. And I do one-on-one coaching with folks to support them through their goals, because it's a process. And like I said, a lot of people come thinking it's going to be a checklist. And once they're in, they realize, oh, okay, we're going to have to work and sit with this for a while.
Yeah.
But I also offer workshops, custom workshop series or standalone workshops. And I would say my sweet spot is helping people heal their relationship with their money.
Yeah.
So if anyone's feeling some kind of way about their money and that way is not a positive way, then that's a good time to connect with me. And yeah, just so grateful to be talking about this. I appreciate your platform, and I just want folks to know that not knowing is not a problem, and that they are enough and they have enough to get started. And
that's excellent.
Find your people and find your resources, but there's no shortcut. You have to look inward, open your bag of laundry.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I love all of that. And we'll put the link to your website in our show notes and link to anything else that you've talked about. I thank you so much for your time, Kelly. I appreciate you. And I really appreciate the work you are doing. I mean, it's so empowering. I mean, I remember learning, so I'm 51. I was born in 1974, and I was reading a book years ago. It's been probably 5 years ago, and had learned that in 1974, women could get, I think it was like their own credit card, or maybe it was a loan, that they could go to the bank and get a loan in their own name. Mm-hmm. And I felt shock by that. I had no idea. And the whole point of this thing that I was reading that was identifying this stuff, again, it's that, of course, honey, like, of course you didn't have women in your life role modeling, running, successful financial business models. And because culturally we were not doing those things. And so just, I think the work that you're doing, and I know it sounds like you work with all genders and all people, and especially for women, and especially for women of color, like, the messaging is everywhere that money isn't for you, right? That money isn't for you. And it is. And this work that you're doing everywhere, but especially in that room, to say it is, let's step up and do this work. So valuable. So thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Rewired, where neuroscience meets real life change. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd be so grateful if you take a moment to leave a 5-star review. Your feedback helps people discover the tools, insights, and inspirations they need to create lasting change. While you're leaving that 5-star review, please also subscribe and share an episode with a friend. Remember, the way you think shapes the way you live. Every intentional thought, every mindful choice rewires your brain and your life. So go live intentionally, live thoughtfully, and never underestimate the power of your own mind to transform your world. Until next time, this is Tiffany with Empower Coaching and Training. Stay curious, stay empowered, and keep rewiring for real change.
Every family has challenges, and every parent deserves support. At Empower Coaching and Training, youth and parenting coach Jasmine Chandler helps parents and young people find clarity, connection, and practical tools that make a difference. Visit yesempower.com to connect with Jasmine and explore our team of incredible coaches today.